Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we are going to be looking at the latest emergency patch changes that GW put out several days ago. Now, I wanted to give this a little bit of time to soak in, mainly because I don't play these factions. I have played against them, but not at a very high level of competitive play. So I really haven't fully, had the Chaos Knight player in a tournament experience, for example. I've played against Chaos Knights before, but it was before the codex, let's just put it that way, and before the points changes. So my experience against Chaos Knights is a little bit limited. However, my experience against the other two armies is a little bit better. And I'm happy to report that I did have a game against the nerfed Imperial Knights, and I had quite a fun game. It was a good experience, and I think for the most part, people will be okay against them going forward. I still think they're very strong, indeed, but they're not going to be, super, super punishing to people who aren't, fielding exactly what they need to take out big knights. So that is good. Now, let's dive into the Chaos Knights. So the Chaos Knights got nerfed significantly. A lot of the knights went up anywhere between 30 and 40 points, some being a little bit more. In the case of the Chaos Knights, we don't see anything higher than 40, but we do see the small knight, the War Dog Carnivore, going up by 10, which is pretty good. The War Dog Carnivore is very good for his points cost. Now, one of the things that I noticed about Chaos Knight lists, specifically in tournament play, was that they were running a lot of Abominants, and it seems like the Abominant is just way too cheap. $355 for a Chaos Knight Abominant. And, this is the one that has all the scary mortal wound stuff, I believe. So that's kind of insane. A little bit insane. So, did they nerf the Chaos Knights enough? That's the real question. And personally, I think they nerfed them, probably somewhere between not enough and, quite severe nerfs. So what I mean by that is this was a rather light touch, right? They didn't nerf them by like a negligible amount, but this is really only preventing most armies from fielding an additional baby knight. It's not going to really mean much more than that. So if you were going up against a Chaos Knight army with like 5 big knights or 4 big knights, let's say, and a bunch of little knights, a bunch of war dogs and stuff like that, typically speaking, they're probably just going to have one less war dog, and that's about it. That's still, a little bit of a nerf, and I think it will affect competitive lists, but I don't think it'll affect them that much. And I actually suspect that a lot of Chaos Knight players, to offset this, are just going to buy cheaper or put cheaper big knights in their lists. And of course, the Abominant is still very cheap at $355. Considering, if you compare that to some of the Imperial Knight counterparts, it's quite cheap. So they can field quite a bit of knights. The Lords of Dread detachment also got a little bit nerfed with the Warp-Born Stalker enhancement. I believe this was the one that gave a knight Deep Strike and Uppy Downy for once per game. Crazy enhancement for 10 points, just being able to do that. So I'm glad they nerfed it to about 25 points. Personally, I think something like this powerful is really worth a lot more than 25, but that's just me personally. So they did nerf that as well. Now, Chaos Knights weren't as dominant as Imperial Knights were, and they definitely weren't as dominant as armies like Deathguard, but they still were a problem, and I'm glad that GW addressed the issue, because obviously the meta was just revolving around these top 3 armies, and it was extremely unhealthy for the game, and we started to see some really wacko stuff being introduced into the meta just to deal with these armies. So that's Chaos Knights for you. Again, I think they're still going to be really strong. Personally, I think Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights are one of those factions that if you don't have a good answer to their knights, it's an auto loss, basically, right? I mean, there's things you can obviously do, but if you can't kill a knight in a single turn of shooting or combat, then you're going to be hurting a lot. And I think knights just really just grind you down over the course of the game. Okay, now the next faction to get the nerf bat was Deathguard. And, you know, I was looking at the Deathguard nerfs the other day and I was really thinking about them. I think it's quite a bit of nerfs, but not by a ton of points. If you look at what exactly got nerfed, it was what we thought was going to get nerfed, right? The Mythic Blight Haulers, you know, those 90-point, you know, previously 90-point tanks that were decent in combat, had good shooting, were really tough, and could just spread the plague of their army very well because they were fairly fast. They got increased by 10 points per model. Honestly, I could easily see this going up in the future as well. I think Deathguard in general are going to be a really good army still. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more GT victories from Deathguard despite the nerfs. We have the Biologus Purifier going up 10 or 15 points, excuse me. That was a very good model and that got nerfed, so that's good. Crazy that it's still only 60 points, which is, you know, less than a Spirit Seer in the Eldari. So, you know, very cheap model for what it does. We have Death Shroud Terminators going up by 20 points. And to be honest, 160 points for 3 of these guys is still really good. It's still really good, and I believe that they will still be a competitive staple going forward. We have the Foated Bloat Drones, both variants going up. We have the regular one with the Flamers, which, God, that thing is super crazy for the points. Now it's 100 points, so it's a little bit more manageable, but still, for 100 points, it does crazy amounts of damage to light infantry. We have the Bloat Drone with the Heavy Blight Launcher going up 20 points, which is honestly, you know, in my opinion, where it should be at, although I would like to see it go up a little bit more just because of the fact that so many people are running them and they are just so deadly. You know, 125 or 130, I don't think would be out of the ballpark for this thing because it's still going to be spammed in Deathguard lists, let's be honest. We have the Foul Blight Spawn going up 15 points. Honestly, I've never fought one of these, but I'm sure it was a competitive staple. It just didn't happen to be in the lists that I particularly fought against. We have the Lord of Contagion. This was no surprise. This was the guy who went with the big Terminator Death Shroud units, and he was just OP as all hell. I still think at 120, he is kind of still too good for his cost. He has 7 wounds. He has a bunch of toughness. He has like toughness 7. And then, of course, on top of that, he gets back up with half of his wounds remaining. So really strong character and just an absolute beat stick. The Lord of Virulence has gone up by 10 points. Not too big of a nerf there, although the Lord of Virulence is very good as well. We have the Plague Burst Crawlers, which are like the bane of light infantry everywhere, going up 15 points apiece. And it's crazy to think that they were only 5 points more expensive than Night Spinners, you know? But yeah, Plague Burst Crawlers have gone up considerably, although I still think people might run this. Poxwalkers went up 5 points. Honestly, okay. I mean, whatever, I guess. They went up 5 points. They're still like one of the best infiltrating units in the entire game, but there you go. Tallyman went up 10 points. I think the Tallyman should go up even more, to be honest. He is overpowered for what you pay for him. Basically, being able to just get a command point on a 7-up for 50 points is insane. And then Typhus went up. And Typhus is good, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I found it a little odd that he went up in points, to be honest. Unless I'm missing something, and I could be missing something. I just don't think Typhus is, like, that good, you know? But, again, obviously could be missing something with him. And then in Mortarian's Hammer, the Tendrilus emissions went up by 10 points, which is good. That enhancement was the best enhancement of the group, so glad it also got nerfed. Now, the thing about Deathguard, though, is nothing else really got touched. We didn't see any point increases to things like, Plague Marines, for example. Plague Marines did not get touched at all. Plague Marines are, in my opinion, one of the best battle line units in the game. And I think a lot of Deathguard players are just going to shift to using more Plague Marines instead of more Death Shrouds or, more Bloat Drone launchers and stuff like that. So, for example, a Bloat Drone launcher for 100 points can easily be replaced, and actually you can save points, by just having a squad of 5 Plague Marines. They're not as fast, but they are a little bit more durable against certain things, and they have more weapon damage. So they have, combat potential and stuff like that. So they're also OC2 apiece. So I think Plague Marines are going to be a play for a lot of people going forward. It's a very easy swap to just swap out these regular Foetid Bloat Drones with the Plague Marine squads. And that's pretty much it. I think, Deathguard, their armies might go down a couple units, maybe 1-2 units. But overall, I still think they're one of the most powerful armies in the game because of what they can do on the tabletop. And when I say what they can do, I just mean the angles of attack that Deathguard can pull off are truly insane. And it's a weird thing because Deathguard are supposed to be the slowest and toughest army in the game, and that doesn't necessarily equate to doing a ton of damage. But Deathguard seem to kind of have it all right now. They have really high damage, they have really high toughness, they have good speed and maneuverability. Even though their base movement isn't high, they have a lot of stuff that allows them to move faster. And on top of it all, they're kind of in that spot where they have better debuffs than everyone else too. So it's like, not only are they, fast, strong, and tough, but they also make your models worse, right? So being able to control the battlefield with things like negative OC and negative toughness, auras, and stuff like that, Deathguard just are a really oppressive army right now in general. There are armies that can beat them, Eldari being one of them, just because anything that shoots Eldari, they're going to die anyway, so Eldari functions a little bit differently than a lot of other factions. Same with Genestealer cults. I think Genestealer cults wouldn't have a tough, at least that tough of a time against Deathguard, because they can just field so many bodies. It's ridiculous. But I have to say, in general, Deathguard, very tough army. I think they're still one of the best armies in the entire game, even after these nerfs. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see another round of nerfs to the Deathguard, specifically targeting some of the rules of the detachments and some of the, special rules of the units. Okay, last army to review. We have, well, actually 2 more armies. So we have Imperial Knights. Let's go over them first. So the Imperial Knights went up pretty much the same as the Chaos Knights, but we do see the Cerastus Knight Atropos going up 40 to 405. The Atropos is really strong model. I have not had the displeasure of fighting against it, so I'm glad. But yes, people use it in competitive play, and it's really overbearing. So I'm glad that got nerfed by 40 points. The Knight Lancer is the one that I'm more used to seeing. The Knight Lancer is still really good, but it is up 30 points. We have the Armiger Helverin up to 140. I do believe this is the right cost for it, so I'm glad that it got nerfed a little bit there. And we have points buffs to multiple other knights. Canis Rex only went up 35 points. Don't really understand that. Canis Rex is really good, so it's confusing to me why he only got a 35-point increase instead of like something like 45 or 50. But again, we might see more nerfs coming up if Imperial Knights still remain dominant, which they probably will, guys. Even with the nerfs, right? Like I said before with the Chaos Knights, that really means that your opponents may be taking out 1 Armiger out of their list. And that's about it, right? Maybe they take 1 or maybe 2 Armigers out of their list, or maybe they don't have that enhancement that they had on a knight, right? So, everybody runs Noble Lance. Maybe they choose not to have one of these enhancements, right? They're always going to have Mysterious Guardian. That thing is just really good for 25 points. Being able to deep strike and uppy downy is just insane. But we might see some different changes there too. So not going to be too much. You're going to see 1 or 2 less models in these armies, but that's about it. You might even see people trading down some of their knights, like maybe if they have double knight lancers, maybe getting rid of a lancer and throwing in a warden, for example, right, to save some points, to save 10 points there. Or, a knight. I don't know how good the Knight Aaron is, but I'm sure it's fine, right? I think it's the one with the cannons, right? Save 20 points there. So there's different things that Imperial Knight players can do to shave points. But essentially, yeah, I think they're going to be a little less powerful, a little less oppressive, but still a very powerful army that you have to watch out for in the meta. And also, here's the other thing, is that when the Knights got buffed, a lot of people started just playing Imperial Knights, and we're going to see more people playing them in competitive play in general, because typically what happens is once armies get nerfed, if a player invests money and time into learning an army, they stick with that army until they get bored of it and something else comes up in the meta that's good. So we might see Imperial Knights still being a force, for quote unquote meta chasers in the future. However, that's not to say that there's not, actual Knight players out there who've been playing since forever with them and really like them, and would just still play them even if they got nerfed. So not taking away anything from those players, but we have seen a huge uptick in Knights. And I know even in my local area, there's 1 or 2 players who started a small Knight army on the side when the Knights got all the buffs. So that is a thing. So yeah, Imperial Knights probably still good, but, a little bit less oppressive than before. Now, the last army is actually Leagues of Votann. So I had the absolute pleasure of playing somebody before the Leagues of Votann points changes due to their codex. And I have to say, the new codex is looking really balanced. And I think these point changes actually make it a little bit more balanced as well, because the game we had was good, but there was a few units in that army that I just thought, for the points, they really seem a little too powerful, too overtuned with some of the buffs that they can get. So we have the Arcanist Evaluator, that's going up 10 points. Arcanist Evaluator is a very good character that you can attach to units. Very strong. My opponent had one of those in his list, so, he did some good work. The Brokir Thunderkin are a really good unit. They got decreased a little bit because they were a little bit too expensive for their durability. They only have 2 wounds apiece. So they're basically Space Marines with a little bit more toughness, and they go down very quick. We have the Scythonian Earthshakers. Now, the Scythonian Earthshakers, I actually think were a little bit oppressive, at least against Eldar, because of the amount of buffs you can stack on these things. So yes, you're only hitting on 4s because you have indirect, but you can also give them sustained hits. You can give them, +1 to wound. You can give them all these things, right, to make them hit much harder. So I think the Earthshakers, unfortunately, I'm glad they got nerfed, because for indirect fire, they were a little bit too good. Indirect fire weapons should be really bad, right? And I hate to say it, I know people will get upset about it, but if you are firing indirect, the weapon itself should not be doing that much damage, right? You should not be able to kill more than your points worth of models with indirect fire. And in fact, you shouldn't even be able to kill half of your points worth of models with indirect fire unless you're really lucky. So on average dice, you shouldn't be able to kill that many models, because you're going to be firing all game long, all 5 turns. I think in the game that I played against Leagues of Votann, these guys took out about 300 points worth of models over the course of the game. And yeah, absolutely just obliterated Aspect Warriors left and right, which was kind of crazy. So, 2d6 plus 8 attacks for the unit of 2, right? And, as we know, 2d6 plus 8, that's an average of 15 attacks with sustained. They're hitting on 4s, they're wounding on 2s, and forcing armor saves because they have AP -1. So you're not even getting a 3+ save against the absolute the absolute menace that is the Earthshakers. So, I guess it's a little bit of just desserts, though, because I was talking a bit of crap about these things when I saw their profile, when all the leaks happened. But then when you put it into context of the whole codex, you realize, oh, these guys actually are really, really good. Okay, so I'm glad they got nerfed. Anyway, Heckined Land Fortress up by 15 points. Thought that was a little weird that it got raised in points, but I can kind of see why. It does have very powerful weaponry, and it can transport one of the best units, not only in the Leagues of Votann, but in the entire game. This unit slaps, guys. And of course, I'm talking about the Ironkin Steeljacks with the heavy Vulcanite Disintegrators. So each of these things, just for context, guys, each of these things gets 6 attacks. It hits on 4's base, but there's a lot of things in the codex to boost their hit rolls to 3 up. And there's some stuff that gives them, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong if anyone knows for sure, but I believe gives them some light rerolls, like rerolls 1s or something like that. It's strength 6. It's AP -1, but it's also dev wounds. It might be AP -2 actually, but it's devastating wounds as well, and it's really, really strong. So yeah, really strong for the points. And they're only 90 points for 3 models. And they're only 180 for 6 now. They used to be even cheaper. It used to be 160 for 6. And then the character kind of boosted it to be just over 200 points. For context, 5 Wraithguard or 5 Wraithblades costs 170. And they have no synergies almost with Spirit Seers. Seriously, guys, I hate to say it, but Wraithguard and Wraithblades benefit very little from Spirit Seers. Because you need to be so close to the unit. Yes, you can resurrect a model, but the sustained hits isn't really that good, right? Especially on Wraithguard, with D-Sites, they can't even use sustained hits. So it's a little bit weird. I wish they would have just given them dev wounds or something so that every single squad could benefit. But anyway, I'm kind of just complaining to complain because the Ironkin Steeljacks are basically Wraithguard, but boosted to the max. They're just Wraithguard as they should be. Then we have Uthar the Destined. He's up 15 points, which he should be because he is really good. He's kind of like a miniature Eldrad a little bit. He's tough, obviously, but he gives his army the ability to have a free command, free stratagem every turn, basically. A zero cost strat or a -1 CP cost strat, whatever you want to call it. Like an Autarch, but for your whole army. So he's really good. And that's it. Those are the changes. My takeaways from Leagues of Votann overall is that they're fine. I don't think they're going to, I think some people are going to unlock them and they're going to be really good. But I don't think they're going to be this OP, army that just destroys everybody in their path. I really don't think that's the case. And I'm glad. I'm so happy that we're finally, at least from what I know, we're a little bit past that point. Now, there's one last thing I want to go over, which is Hearthkin Warriors. Now, Hearthkin Warriors, guys, this is where Codex creep is coming in. And I wouldn't even say Codex creep. I'd actually say battle line creep. Because what it seems like GW has done is they've realized how bad some of the battle line units are in comparison to the other units in the Codex that are being run in competitive games. And they've started to decide to, and again, these codexes are written like months and months prior. So around the time when this codex was being written, I'm sure it was a conversation, at the rules development team to say, hey, we need to make battle line units a little bit more impressive so that people buy them and so that people are actually playing with them and stuff like that. So, that's all well and good, except that Hearthkin Warriors are vastly superior Storm Guardians now. And me and Storm Guardians. Every time something just is better for the points in Storm Guardians, I'm like, really? What the hell, right? So these guys are 100 points. They come with better weapons than Storm Guardians. Now, they don't have as many special weapons as Storm Guardians. Like Storm Guardians can take 2 power swords, 2 flamers, and 2 fusion guns, which are really good, don't get me wrong. But as a whole, the Hearthkin Warriors have a better selection of weapons that they can choose from. They also get a 6-up Feel No Pain. They also have toughness 5, so they're really tough. They're much tougher than Storm Guardians. They do more damage than Storm Guardians. They reroll ones to hit, by the way. So they do more damage. They have that feel no pain, so they're tougher. They still have that OC value. They still have sticky objectives. So these are one of the basically new battle line units that has 2 special rules. They have the sticky objective special rule, and then they have some sort of damage bonus special rule, just like Space Marine Intercessors. So honestly, if this is the trend, I mean, give Guardians and Storm Guardians something else then, right? Like if you're going to buff all the battle line units in the game and give them an extra little ability, then buff Storm Guardians, buff Guardian Defenders. All they would literally need to do to Guardian Defenders and Storm Guardians is give them the same thing. Give them rerolls 1s to hit or to wound or whatever, right? So like Storm Guardians can have +1 to hit or, rerolls 1s to hit in close combat if you wanted to do that. And Guardians could have rerolls 1s to hit at range, and that would be perfect. So that's my little gripe about the Hearthkin Warriors. I think, obviously, are people going to like spam these? No, they're not, right? They're a battle line unit. They have a very niche role in that they have sticky objectives, but they're just a really good sticky objective unit. And I honestly wish that GW did a better job like fixing or improving battle line units for the entire game and not just one army at a time, so that there's that kind of disparity between them. But anyway, I like Leagues of Votann overall. I think they're a healthy army right now. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, there's always going to be people coming up with some broken combos, right? But I think they're good for now. All right, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and thank you so much for supporting the channel over these last 3 years. It's meant a whole lot to me, and I really appreciate it. We do have some more Eldar-focused content coming up. I've just been really busy with just real life stuff. And, to be honest with you, I'm going through a transition in my life right now. So it's a little bit harder to get out videos, but I will be getting a video out soon on a couple of new ideas and a couple of units that I want to talk about, and also some strategies to helping you score better in your games. We will have those videos out probably later next week. I would say I'm going to try for Monday for the next video, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, anyway, so videos coming out soon, guys. Don't worry. I'm not trying to slack over here. Also, if you guys are interested in joining the Patreon, I will leave the link in the description for that. The Patreon gives you access to our Discord community, which is just a phenomenal community of Eldar players and enthusiasts. Honestly, so many awesome people are part of the Discord. Truly great, and will help you with a lot of different things. And of course, I'm willing to help you guys with whatever you need. Just join the Discord, hit me up, DM me or at me, and I'm always willing to help. So, definitely take that opportunity. Now, as for the Discord access, you can just get it through the Patreon, but you do have to sign up for a free trial at least. So do keep that in mind. Obviously, if you want to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it. You don't have to, but it would be appreciated. And then lastly, I do have a channel store page and an Amazon affiliate link, as well as a Kickstarter link to the Elder Knights Codex. Check those things out if any of those things are interesting to you, or, you feel free to email me if you have any questions on those things as well. All right, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.